Hey, it's July 4th, and it's the Outdated Wrestling Hour. We got a big one for you. Brian R. Solomon and Joe Puccio both talking about nostalgic professional wrestling. And hey, it's the holiday, and this song makes me want to shake it. Shake it. Shake it. Come on, dance with me. Shake it. Come on. Shake it. Oh! Well, happy July 4th, and welcome to a new edition of the Outdated Wrestling Hour. A holiday special or something, I don't know. My name's Bob Smith. You remember me from my days with Pro Wrestling Illustrated and other wrestling magazines. We're going to talk a lot about wrestling magazines in this show because we have one very special guest. For the first time, I'm proud to say, I spent an entire day in the presence and talking with the great Brian R. Solomon. You know him from the Arcadian Vanguard podcast, Shut Up and Wrestle. And you know him from PWI and WWF Magazine and a million other things. And the great prolific book author he's become. First of all, with the book about the Sheik, and later this year, Gorilla Monsoon. You're going to want to see that one. I can tell you right now, you're really going to want to see that one. I took a little recording equipment to his home, and we sat and talked, wrestling magazines and other topics and other things. And I think you're going to enjoy the conversation that him and I had. That's going to lead off our show this time. Then we'll take our little commercial break and we'll come back with Joe Puccio and I, who are going to kind of go toe to toe on a subject that we probably didn't agree on more than any subject we've ever brought up on the show before. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We think it's going to be a really fun show this time. So get yourself your delicious cold beverage. It is July 4th. I think it's the day for hot dogs, too, or maybe some grilled outside hamburgers, right? Is there anything better than a charcoal grilled hamburger? My goodness. Oof. Or at least a flame grilled one. Holy smokes. So anyway, it's July 4th. Get ready. We're going to try to entertain you on the Outdated Wrestling Hour. We'll take this first break, and then here comes Brian R. Solomon, another short break, and then myself and the wonderful Joe Puccio. Don't miss this one. I think it's going to be a little different. Aren't they all? It's your one-stop shop. Great wrestling. WrestleCopia.com, where you'll find an armload of great wrestling podcasts. Some are weekly, some are not. All of them are great. Ray Russell brings WrestleCopia to you, including his own show, The Wrestling Memory Grenade. There's Regional Wrestling, The Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop, the Puro Wrestling Academy, Retro Wrestling Review with Gene Jackson, Dave Dynasty's Wrestling Nostalgia, Monday Warfare, Raw vs. Nitro, the Other Ship podcast, the Captain's Corner podcast, and much, much more. Great hosts, great shows. I guarantee you'll learn something every time you tune in to the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Where do you find all these shows? How about starting it this way? Just log on to WrestleCopia.com. There's nothing else like it anywhere. Okay, it's the 4th of July, y'all, as this podcast comes out. And I want to do something a little special. And I was invited to somebody's house for a nice get-together. And that somebody is really somebody. It's Brian R. Solomon, the host of Shut Up and Wrestle on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. You know him for his writing, his great book on the Sheik. He's got a spectacular new book coming out, which we'll talk about a little bit here, and 1,000 other things inside the ropes, you name it. It's Brian R. Solomon. Brian, thank you for the invitation. This is the first time I'm interviewing somebody for the show outside of the Hall of Fame in Albany in person, so this is different for me.
Well, thanks for coming out. Like I said, when I heard that you guys were in Queens and I'm up here in Connecticut, I knew we weren't that far apart. And the weather's nice, even though it's super hot today and we're not really outside. I said, you got to come up and visit. So thanks for making the trip up to the Solomon compound here in lovely Connecticut.
I want everybody to know that the stuff in this compound is fantastic. Brian, unbeknownst to me, is a big collector of memorabilia from throughout his career, photographs and magazines, and you name it. He's got a lot of it, and it's been a blast. We've been going around his house and checking out all of his wrestling memories. And as someone as learned as you are, someone who teaches and things like that, I'm thinking he probably doesn't have a lot of memorabilia, but you're the opposite. You have a lot of memorabilia. What does it mean to you personally to have all these memories surrounding you all the time in your house? I mean, it's something that I personally don't do for reasons. I just never really thought about doing it a lot, but you have taken a lot of time and consideration into developing an amazing house full of, well, wrestling.
It's just comforting to me. I always hear when people will talk about how you shouldn't have too much stuff, or I know George Carlin has the famous routine about stuff, and people will say, well, you shouldn't let yourself be defined by your stuff and it becomes a burden. And I have found in my life that the exact opposite is true. It's just my own personal thing is I like being surrounded by the memories of things I've done. I like being surrounded by my books that I love, my music I like to listen to. Yes, it's a lot of stuff. And yes, I've moved many times in my life and I've got to cart it around, and it sucks when you have to do that. But it is such a pleasure to me to live in a home where I'm surrounded by these things that bring me joy. Simple as that.
I can see where it does. He's got some really cool stuff here. And not to mention, he just showed me a couple of, but here's the thing, you're still collecting. You just showed me a couple of magazines you just purchased from PWI from the mid-'80s. So when something catches your eye, you still grab it, don't you?
One thing I do, I have definitely slowed down collecting a ton. But if I just find myself face-to-face in a situation where there are things that I'm interested in, I've still been known to pick them up. I'm not as actively seeking out things as I used to be. I'm 50 years old. I got a lot of things here, and I can't be as hog wild as I used to be. But like, for example, those magazines you're talking about, I was on the Jersey Shore with my wife. So, of course, as one does when one finds old wrestling magazines, we were celebrating our 10th wedding anniversary. We happened to be in an antique store in Point Pleasant. And anytime I go into an antique store, I will say this. I do have a little antenna up for wrestling stuff because you almost never find wrestling stuff in antique shops. But when you do, it's amazing. And so we're browsing. My wife comes up to me randomly, and she's holding up these two 40-year-old PWI issues. And she goes, oh, you have these, right? You don't really care about this. And my eyes almost popped out of my head. My jaw hit the floor because it's exactly the kind of stuff I try to find. Like vintage wrestling magazines and programs are my most favorite thing to find anywhere. And it's because they're so hard to find, especially anything, from the 80s and earlier, preferably even. And so I snatched them up. Yeah. But I'm not hunting those kind of things anymore. But when I see them, I will grab them. Yeah.
I got a story for you. When I was working my first newspaper job, which was in my hometown, the Catskill Daily Mail, when I was covering Tyson and all that stuff, I'm driving home and I'm passing this. We had this old rickety bookstore. I swear this story is true. I'm surprised I never told you this one before. And there's a card table out next to the entrance of this place, right? A bunch of magazines sitting out on top. So I pull the car over and I take a look at it. Every one of them was a wrestling magazine. And there was this place was run by seniors who were like 100 years old. The place looked like a haunted house, those type of things. But on the mailbox, there was a note saying, take what you want, leave $1. I took them all. There had to have been 175 wrestling magazines in that stack. And I took them all home. And I was reading them, and my ex-wife was going to kill me. She says, where were we even putting these things? I said, I paid nothing for these. Mm-hmm. Something told me you have to buy these. Now, How much of that stuff that I learned through those wrestling magazines did I write about later in the PWI magazine? Who knows? But the fact is, it sure didn't hurt. Wrestling magazines to me were my best way of learning about wrestling growing up, and I retained a lot of that stuff, and a lot of that stuff was regurgitated in PWI. I swear, because once you know a fact or a championship or a feud, you can refer back to it. You might if you've read about it. So, you say it's the same thing for you as a writer, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is. This is how you absorb all these things, is just by reading. About 20 years ago, I was in an antique shop in Kent, Connecticut, which is this quaint little, when people say Connecticut, they're thinking of Kent, Connecticut, okay? And it was like Christmas in Connecticut, Connecticut. And right in the front, and I think this happens sometimes, you know what it is? When a collector, I think, passes away. A bunch of stuff and right next to the door, a stack of, you know what it was? Wrestling As You Like It. The original first newsstand wrestling publication from the 50s that was put together by Jim Barnett. It was basically the house organ of the Fred Kohler Wrestling from the Marigold, old broadcast on the Dumont Network. And they put out this little, I say little, it's not full magazine size. It was like the size of maybe like a digest size. It was a magazine put out in the early 50s, and they all had a subscription label with the same address on it. There's probably this little old man that had these in his house. And I swear to God, I should have bought, unfortunately, they were not asking for just $1. I should have bought every single one, regardless of the cost. It would have been worth it. I bought 3 of them, and they were probably like 7 or 8. I wish I'd just splurged and bought them all. I mean, absolutely priceless find. It's so hard to find, but this is part of the process of absorbing as much as I can about wrestling history, which is why I'm able to talk about it and sound at least like I know what I'm talking about.
No, I'm telling you, it was the wrestling magazines for me. It really was. And you know what? I'll ask you this question too. Even though I ended up working for PWI, I mean, I started at the top. Like I always say, I was the Martin Short of that staff because I replaced, I think, I forget who I replaced, but I was replacing other staff members. So, they already had Craig Peters and Bill Apter and Dave Rosenbaum and Andy Rodriguez, and I just kind of walked in on their coattails. But my question to you is, growing up, what was your favorite wrestling? Did you have a favorite? Hint for me, it wasn't PWI. I like the Keitzer books. I like the agate in the back pages with all those results and stuff like that. It sold me like crazy. But what were your favorites growing up?
Well, I know, to fans of a certain age, this will sound embarrassing, and to fans of a later age, they'll all be nodding their heads. But when I was little, it was WWF magazine. It really was. And you know what? People could say, I worked there. Okay, so that bias is out there, but people could say all they want about WWF magazine, World Wrestling Federation magazine. It had its limits. It was the best-selling wrestling magazine in history. Whether people want to accept that or not, it was. We had circulation at its peak. I think the circulation was like 500,000 or something like that. That was what first got me in. I started buying the slick because it was all color. It was slick. It had all the people I knew as a kid. The first issue I bought had the babyface Ken Patera on the cover when he came back as the ex-con and he had paid his debt to society. I bought those. But when I really started branching out beyond WWF magazine was as a teenager. I started because I'd go to the newsstand. I lived in New York City, in Brooklyn. So I'd go to the physical newsstand. You'd see all the wrestling magazines up there on the rack, about 2 inches away from the porno magazines too, which was always really interesting. You had to make very clear which ones you were looking at and which ones you were not looking at and all this. But I started seeing all these other ones. And I've said this before, but the one that sold me on, outside wrestling magazines, not WWF, was the Wrestler magazine, which was the sister magazine of PWI. It was actually older than PWI. It was the oldest one that they had at that time. They had their 25th anniversary issue, 1991. Silver cover, beautiful. I bought it, and it had 25 years of wrestling history in it, from 1966 to 1991. All the biggest stars, matches, whatever. That did it. That changed my life. Seriously. That magazine made me go, Holy crap. There's like a whole history to this. I'm 16, 17. It's more than just what I see on TV every week. I want to learn everything I can possibly learn about this. And that's how it started. And, I missed a lot of the heyday of the wrestling magazines because you're talking about by the time I'm going crazy and buying every wrestling magazine I can get, it's like 1991 into the early mid 90s. A lot of them are going away already. So there was, I don't think Wrestling World was still around. There was still Wrestling Eye. I would get that. There was the who's that guy? What was his name? He did New Wave Wrestling, and oh man, he did a ton.
I know who you're
Irish
talking
name?
about. Yes, and I can't remember his name either. And what's really true? I never saw those in my life.
Okay, New Wave Wrestling was a big one because New Wave Wrestling would put the real names of the wrestlers in it. And you would learn, Mark Calloway is coming in as the Undertaker or things like that. And they would give you real inside stuff like the WWF is trying him out in dark matches and they're calling him Kane the Undertaker, which they were. And so like that kind of stuff blew me away. But there weren't a ton. George Napolitano's Starlog mags were still around. There was Wrestling Superstars. And those were really big on photos. And I have to say, like, I love George. I talk to him all the time. I love all wrestling magazines. Those were not my number one favorite, not because they weren't good, but because I was a writing guy. I like to read stuff. And those magazines were mainly about the photos more than anything else. They were giant photo pullouts and posters and things. I was much more interested in reading the articles and reading the history and stuff. So I tended to go, I was all about the London publishing magazines, anything they did. Inside Wrestling, The Wrestler, PWI, The Wrestling Analyst, Sports Review Wrestling, whatever they put out, Wrestling Classics, that was another one they did, or something like that, Wrestling Classics, anything they did.
Wrestling Superstars, Wrestling Annual, just anything they could throw out there. So that means you started around 91 with their magazines when I was on the staff. So I didn't realize that. I did not know that, which means I worked on that issue of The Wrestler, and I don't remember a damn thing about it at this point. I just don't. It did have a silver cover.
It did. It had a silver cover, and it had, I remember there was a picture. One of the pictures was Superstar Graham versus Bruno Sammartino. A few different shots like that. Brian Last has talked about this issue too. There were a lot of young fans like me that became wrestling history nuts because of that particular issue. But there were others, and you were on the staff at the time. I remember, this was like Dave Rosenbaum, you mentioned. Chris Bernucca, is that how you pronounce it? Bernucca, Eddie Elner. Everybody talks about Dan Shockett. I was too young for Dan Shockett. Eddie Elner was my heel wrestling writer, was the one that I read. And he would talk about Andre the Giant statue. And he would talk about, he would say stuff about Dusty Rhodes. I forget what he would always talk about the splotch on Dusty Rhodes' side. I loved his stuff. Who else was in there? Oh, Dave Lenker, or was he more like a boxing guy?
I think Dave was in the boxing end of things. There may have been, let me see, I don't know if Joey Styles was with us at that point or not. Because in the 90s, Joey joined our staff as an intern, as I recall. And you know what? Joey knew more about wrestling than everybody on the staff. He was amazing. He was amazing. And as you know, I was the first TV announcer for ECW, but I'll tell you what, I've never been so happy to walk away from something because it led to him. And I was there the day, I believe that he met Paul Heyman, who came to the office one day. I have never been so happy to walk away from something because the right guy got the right job. And, all those Observer Awards prove it.
And then he later came to work for WWE after I left. He joined up when ECW got absorbed, and he became, he was heavily involved in their website, WWE.com. He was doing a lot of that kind of stuff, but I just kind of missed him. But he was on the crew there. There was also Frank Cruda, which might have been a little bit later. That might have been after you left, I think. Mm-hmm. And Frank Vitucci, who was Bill Apter's photo assistant, who wound up coming to work for WWE when I was there and is still there to this day and heads up the photo department to this day of WWE.
I'm getting sad. I'm sitting here getting sad because I was so entrenched in that company, and now you bring up names I've never heard of.
They came after you.
They came after me, and I'm like, damn. And it's all because of that move. Like I said, they didn't fire me and I didn't quit. I had to go. I had just bought, an apartment, a co-op apartment near the office. I could walk to work, my friend. And it all blew up when Stanley said, "I'm selling to Nick Karabots." And that's my Stanley. Did you ever meet Stanley?
No. In fact, I'm not sure when he passed away, but it might have happened at the time that I was just kind of getting into those magazines. I don't think he was not heavily involved. When I would read them, I always remember his name would be at the top of the masthead. It would be like Nat Fleischer, Ring Magazine, right? It would be Stanley Weston for the London magazines. This sort of godlike figure. You didn't quite know what he did, like Martin Goodman at Marvel Comics, right? Who was above Stan Lee. You didn't know what this guy did, but he was the guy. Because to me, like all those other kids back then, it was Apter. Everybody called them the Apter magazines. And it's a funny thing because I still work for them now and I do stuff for Kevin McIlvaney, and they haven't been the Apter magazines for 25 years. People still call them the Apter magazines. And I know in the pages of the magazine itself, they always try to say, and on their social media, they always say the Weston magazines, which is actually more accurate to what they were. I mean, Bill was the face of it.
Oh, Stanley was a genius, and I'll tell you why. When the wrestling magazines got hot in the early 80s, and Craig Peters told me about this recently, it's like, they used to work in a dingy office in Freeport, Long Island, and he said, I can do better than this now. Sales are going up like crazy. What he did was he constructed, I believe, a 5-story building in the middle of Rockville Center. He put the wrestling department on the 5th floor, right? And rented out the first 4 floors. So he was making the income from the businesses that were renting this business office and using it as our headquarters. And it was beautiful. The offices back then were really, really nice for their time. He was a very smart man with his money, and I will say his staff was very loyal. I mean, the people in the printing department, the people in fulfillment, the people in the art department, they were all so loyal to Stanley. And when he decided to sell it, it kind of killed that classic era for PWI because the old timers didn't want to stay. They didn't want to work for anybody else. They saw how they were going to change things, and they couldn't move. Some of them were elderly at that point, and that was the end of that. So it's just bringing back a lot of memories for me is really what I'm saying. But Stanley really was a genius in terms of getting the word out there and maximizing what he had. He retired a rich man, and good for him.
And that happened too while I was a reader of those magazines, because I remember the changeover. I remember when the mailing address went to Ambler, Pennsylvania from Rockville Center. I was also depressed because I was harboring a fantasy and a dream of working there and writing there and being on the team there. I used to send clippings to Bill and to Stu when I was in college, probably wound up in the circular file. I don't know, but I was really serious about it to the point where when I got the job at WWE in their magazines, I almost considered that like a consolation prize, which is crazy when you think about it, because I'm working for the preeminent company in the entire industry, and I'm going in my head, I really wish I was at Pro Wrestling Illustrated. You know, I didn't know any better at the time. I didn't know about pay structures and things like that. I just knew I had this dream of working for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, you know, but I had a fondness. But I remember when they moved, and I remember not liking the changes, even then as a young reader, because I always liked, and maybe I'm in the minority on this, I liked when, first of all, the magazines got smaller. You know, they were cheaping out on the size, the dimensions. They went to all perfect bound, which I know a lot of people love. I much preferred when it was saddle stitched with the staples, where you could open it better. The posters you could pull out easier. When it went to, and even to this day, it's still perfect bound, where it's a glue spine. I felt like, I don't know. To me, I even fought against that at WWE. I always preferred the staple binding because I felt like the magazine held together better. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but it just seemed like all these cost saving measures were coming into play when Kappa took over. So,
well, you know what I think the big change was during the changeover that was the most stark. They lost Ken Morgan, the art director. The magazine started to have a different look with the covers, different font usage.
Yes,
they were just totally different, and they lost the Ken was a genius. Ken is the unsung hero of the glory years of PWI and all those other magazines. He had the right font for the right headline every time. I swear to you, when we would hand our stuff over to the art department, he would come up with that stuff all by himself, and he would teach the guys in the rest of the art department to kind of follow his lead on a thing. And we had a signature look to those magazines.
Yes.
That all went away, and it had to, because it wasn't the same people doing it. I'm not damning anybody in the second company, but what I'm saying is, when they lost Ken Morgan, they lost a lot. He really was a big key to the success. The big color photos. You just showed me a couple of covers. Those were Ken Morgan covers. Different fonts for different statements on he just had the touch. We never had him to tell him anything. He just knew what to do. He was an amazing guy and a great guy who went on to, by the way, work for Topps Baseball Cards. So, Ken, I hope you're still out there, man, because you were a big reason for the glory years of the PWI magazine. You really were.
Was he the guy that the picture of Matt Brock was? Because I was told that the Matt Brock picture, which, by the way, I had no idea that Matt Brock was not real until Frank Vitucci told me when we were both working at WWE, and I was floored. And he told me that Liz Hunter wasn't real and Matt Brock wasn't real. I almost died because I was like, Matt Brock was my favorite writer. He was the one that spoke to me. But the picture of him, I was told, was a picture of one of the layout guys on the magazine.
I don't think so. I think he was one of the business guys.
With the visor and
with the visor and the cigarette hanging out. Yeah.
Okay, business guy.
I eventually became Matt Brock for a while, and it was
What a dream.
It was, yes. Matt was the best thing to write. He really was.
Because I'll tell you something. In that 25th anniversary of The Wrestler issue I was telling you about, there was a Matt Brock article, and the idea was they asked Matt Brock, "You are the grizzled old wrestling scribe, right?" Matt Brock. This might have been you, Bob. You may not remember, because this is summer of 91, okay? And Matt Brock was asked Matt Brock, quote unquote, to write about the best wrestling match he had seen in the last 25 years, because he'd been watching wrestling since the dawn of time. And the match he wrote about was Harley Race winning the NWA World title from Terry Funk at the Maple Leaf Gardens in 1977. And he wrote a blow-by-blow of this match and how he was there and all this crazy stuff. And that article, I ate it up. I'm telling you, to this day, the stuff that I write, where I try to write these evocative pieces about wrestling history, and I talk about what the weather was like that day and all this other stuff, I'm thinking about Matt Brock half the time that I'm doing it, and articles like that.
Ah, that was fun. That was. I don't know if I wrote that. No, I don't think it was me. I'll tell you why. I don't think I actually saw a tape of that. Well, maybe I did see a tape of that match. I'll never know. I will say I did such a mountain of writing for that company that people send me clips every so often on PDF forms through social media. I don't remember writing half of this stuff. So it was so long ago, and I don't have anything to go by. But I will say, I remember writing about Matt and really enjoying the fact that I stopped by the convenience store and they were out of smokes. What am I going to do now? So I go into my room, and I've got a picture of the local Picayune newspaper. And what do you know? Abdullah just carved up another rookie. What are we supposed to do about a monster like this? I loved writing Matt Brock.
So much fun. We would try to, I think I've said this to you, but we would try to emulate stuff like that at WWE Magazine. And people may not understand this, but at the time that I was at WWE Magazine, it's 2000 to 2007. So everyone there at that time, even the older guys, they had grown up reading wrestling magazines, and they loved the London magazines. There were guys I was one of the youngest guys there. I was in my 20s. So there were guys there in their 30s, 40s, 50s at that time. And we were trying to emulate that style in a lot of the things we would do. And we would create these fictional scenarios. Like one of the templates was always, there's a new guy in WWF. I remember doing one for Chris Jericho, and they're in the locker room and they're eyeing the locker room, and there's certain cliques and they're trying to navigate their way, and Steve Austin is there and The Rock is there. It was all completely made up. We just created these made up scenarios. We thought about it like creative writing. It was like you got to do creative writing. And then we also had Raw Magazine, which was more straight up journalistic style. So you got to do both. With the WWE publications, we were getting to do very creative stuff. Like you guys, you had Matt Brock. We had The Informer. The Informer was supposed to be this undercover reporter. No one knew who he was. He was just called The Informer, and he knew all the dirt. And I'm telling you, The Informer was like about 5 or 6 different people over the years. It originally was Vince Russo. Vince Russo created The Informer. And after he left, I never got to do it, but after he left, a bunch of different people, I think Kevin Kelly was the Informer for a while, a guy that I worked with, Aaron Williams, Mike Chiappetta. There were different informers. I'm revealing things here, but I never got to do it. But that was our thing that we liked to do. But it was totally ripped off stuff that PWI would do, that kind of stuff, you know?
That's the ultimate compliment right there. It is. If we were an inspiration to something you guys did. And you know what? When I left the company, when the company was fragmenting, somehow our photo assistant, Roy London, got a job with the WWF magazine. And I'm gritting my teeth. Not anything against Roy. This has nothing to do with Roy. I'm like, I wanted to work for WWF too. I did. I thought the magazine was fabulous. I thought it was obviously a successful thing. And I've always kind of fantasized not only about working for the magazine, but maybe working with them in creative. And I have always been surprised. I've had other people tell me this too, that people like Apter and Peters and myself and a few of the others were never considered for creative with WWF, especially when the magazine's folded. We all kind of went separate ways. Craig went and joined the circus. For real, Barnum and Bailey, whatever it was, and we all kind of split up and went our separate ways. And I just wonder, I don't know, were we always considered the enemy? You would know better than I would.
Well, I'll tell you this, and there was maybe a little bit of that, and I even told Bill Apter this story. It's no secret, but you know there was a stigma. That was the thing within WWE, that if you were wrestling people, it was almost like you were tainted. Everybody they wanted to work with had to be some slickster from some outside business. They would mark out for Hollywood people. They would mark out for the New York Magazine people and that kind of thing. And like I remember when Shawn Michaels, okay, and Bill knows this story, when Shawn Michaels was going to do his biography through WWE, he asked for Bill Apter, and the company said no. The company said, we want, quote unquote, a real writer. Like they wanted some serious, whatever, author to do this, which is ridiculous when you think about it. Who better equipped to do a book like that than Bill? And Shawn even knew that. He wanted Bill. Bill had been there from when Shawn was a rookie wrestling for Joe Blanchard, okay? He wanted Bill to do this book. And so I remember Shane scrambling, Shane McMahon, who was the head of our department, who was trying to find a writer, because he had a lot of write, and he's going, well, who can we have do this book? And I volunteered, me, and I said, I can do it. I've written a book before. And he goes, what book have you written? I said, WWE Legends for you guys. And I could immediately see him go crestfallen, because that immediately made me someone they didn't want, because I had written a wrestling book and I worked for them. They wanted some big shot, high toned writer to do this book. Such a stupid thing. And they wound up getting a writer who used to work for WWE, who I worked with, who was working as a freelance writer at the time. But just the fact that he didn't work there anymore was almost like a bonus to them. They didn't want one of their own people writing this book. So there was a little bit of that, I think, where it was looked down on to a certain degree. Yes, I do think so.
I still say that most outsiders don't know their psychology.
Right.
They just don't. And you'd have to teach it to them, and they still don't understand it. It's the people who have spent a decade or more in the trenches in some form of pro wrestling that really understand how a promotion works, or how a story works, or anything when it comes to pro wrestling. But, you know, it's all water on the bridge. Now, I don't want to take up too much of your. We're here on a leisure a Sunday afternoon together, fan. I don't want to take up too much of Brian's time, but I do want to
have some coffee. So
yeah, he wants coffee. And before I go, congratulations again. We're all waiting with bated breath for the Gorilla Monsoon biography. Tell us the name again. Tell me where you're at with that project, and we're all waiting.
Sure, it's Irresistible Force: The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon, and as of now, I'm making the final approvals for the cover, for the photos that are going into the book. The text is all approved. The cover's being finalized. And I'm told that the street date for the book is September 3rd, but I'm told that copies will begin to trickle out and probably appear at some bookstores and things as early as the beginning of September. I'll probably have copies in my hand by the end of August, so I'm getting very excited. It's so close, and I can't wait. I can't wait to be able to really share it with the world. Some of the podcasts are starting to come calling. I have promised Jim Cornette and Brian Last they will get the first crack, just like they did as the Chic book. And I know that Briscoe and Bradshaw, Jerry Briscoe reached out to me this morning to ask when I can come on. So I already see the media blitz coming, and I couldn't be happier.
I'll take a number. Okay,
Yes.
I'll take a number. But in any event, listen, congratulations on that. I know it's going to be superb. I know it's going to be your next big hit. And your podcast, Shut Up and Wrestle, is great. Everything you do is fantastic. And your appearances on the Outdated Entertainment Hour have been the best shows I've done to date. The one about your great uncle is a classic. If you folks haven't heard that, you got to hear it. I don't even need to tell you what it is. You want to hear a fascinating human interest story, you got to hear that podcast. So, and by the way, this is the first time Brian Solomon and I have been in the same place together in person. So thanks for the invite to your abode. I really appreciate it.
Happy to have you guys come. Happy to meet your lovely wife. It's been a pleasure. And like I said to you while we were talking before, I really wish that everyone in our circle, everybody that I know, in wrestling media and that does podcasting, lived within reasonable distance of me, because I would love to have a big blowout barbecue party for everybody. If we all just live closer together to make it actually happen.
Hey guys, ribs. So you listen, if nothing else, come for the ribs. I mean, we should make this happen. I will be your conduit. We'll get a whole mess of wrestling people together in the same place. And the next thing you know, the fire department will come and the police will be called. It'll be great.
I'm all for it. You just name the date and I'll make it happen.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, a great guy. It's Brian R. Solomon. Thank you again. And we're going to go have dessert. We'll see you later.
All right. Thanks, Bob. Bring on the coffee.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that, well, if it's as old as I am, it'll never end. Here's a guy who's always king-sized in terms of his wrestling intellect. It's Joe Puccio, the co-host of the Outdated Wrestling Hour. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing today, Bob?
All right. Today's joke name in the studio box is Tyson. Huh?
So I know when you saw that pop up on your screen in the studio, Bob, you probably are thinking, I don't know, Mike Tyson, or I don't know, maybe Tyson Foods, Tyson Chicken, depending on where your mind's at right now. But no, I'm using Tyson for a little tribute to one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, the real name of Mr. Kenny Omega, Tyson Smith. And I know you would agree with me that Mr. Omega or Mr. Smith is a fine wrestler, would you not?
My heart. I can't breathe. I just got slapped in the face with a wet fish, folks. You're going to proclaim your love for Kenny Omega here in front of me and God and everyone who's listening. Is this right?
That is correct. I am a huge fan of his, from obviously not only his AEW current run. He was a founding father, but from his ventures or his adventures before that, from the independents, and he was in DDT Pro Wrestling. He did Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, obviously New Japan, Ring of Honor. He's been all over the place. But yeah, I'm a huge Omega fan.
Okay. I didn't know this. I will say this. If you've ever heard Jim Cornette's treatises on Kenny Omega through the years, from today all the way back, I'll put it this way. I agree with Jim, but he's being too nice. It's one of the reasons why I do not fancy AEW. One of the main reasons is the original crew that they brought in. Him, the Bucks. I got no use for any of them. Sorry, kids. Sorry, children, you can switch off now. I just don't have any use for them. I think their mindset about professional wrestling isn't professional wrestling. That's the problem. You know, they've done a lot of things in their careers that in lesser times would have damaged the sport beyond repair, but they got away with it. They moved on. Now, I'm not saying they're not athletic. I'm not saying they can't. I'm sure they all put on good matches now and again. You know, I can't take it away from them. I just can't get this stink out of my mind. You ever run over like roadkill, like a skunk, right? And it's been 10 miles and you still smell it, right? You still smell it. It's like, and you go to yourself, you say, why am I still smelling skunk? That was way back in the last county. How am I still? That's Kenny Omega. You know, he ran over the skunk and the smell's still there. I'll put it that way. I can't take him seriously. I don't take a lot of what they do seriously. I don't take Tony Khan seriously. I just don't. I know you're an AEW fan, which is fine. If you enjoy it, knock yourself out. That's fine. But I'm a little surprised to hear you sing Mr. Omega's praises.
Well,
to me, he's one of the early proponents of flippy wrestling, as us old timers call it, and it's just not. I'll put it this way: I'm biting my tongue. Watch me. I just bit my tongue. It ain't for me. It just
okay.
I'd rather watch Butcher Vachon. I'd rather watch Vincenti Pimenti. I'd rather watch Gene Ligon than Kenny Omega. I'm sorry, it's just me. The floor is yours.
But look, okay, understood. This is understandable. But when you say he's not for you, or you don't like his style or the flippy stuff, I will, I'll argue with you in this sense, in that you mentioned some of the original crew that started AEW, like the Young Bucks. Now, I don't know if we've ever specifically talked about the Bucks. I'm a big Young Bucks fan. I think they're a really good team. Now, I can almost understand if you're not a big fan of that style of wrestling, where I know the Bucks have their detractors, because they are certainly, while they're extremely athletic, I think they're a great tag team. They also are a little bit, their realism isn't really there, because they do a lot of the synchronized teamwork things that it seems very set up. So I can almost understand if you're not a fan of that style. Again, I do like it. I'm a big fan of theirs.
Let me make just one point. You and I, untrained, unathletic too, are standing on one side of the ring. And those guys are on the other side. And we're going to have a fight. Who's winning the fight? We are. You and me are beating the shit out of those two. I'm sorry. We're going to immortalize them. They would never win a real fight against anybody they've ever been in the ring with. I rest my case.
But this is not just, if you're going to say that about the Young Bucks, wouldn't you say that about a lot of the tag teams through the years?
I'd say it about a lot of the not just tag teams, but some of the undersized wrestlers at the same time. But the thing is this: that's why they had light heavyweight divisions. That's why they had junior heavyweight divisions. It made sense.
Look at the Midnight Rockers. I mean, Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty, they were a great tag team back in the day. They did a lot of the same style of moves that the Bucks did. The Bucks only sort of did them, to me, they did them like 10 times better than the Rockers did. But I mean, look at what happened to Shawn Michaels, how big of a star he became in the business. So I kind of equate.
But they weren't the the free shrimp with fried rice that the Young Bucks are. Those guys are tiny, man. They're small. I mean, they're minuscule.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't deny it. They're shrimpy. They're small. Do I hold that against them personally? Of course not. Do I hold it against a booker that would have them go over a tag team of regular sized human beings? Yes, I do. I'm sorry. They're not going to win in a real fight in that regard. So I can't take it seriously, because there's too much of a. I have to throw my logic out the window to think that they're going to beat the Road Warriors or something. It's not happening.
Okay, well, moving to Omega, I definitely don't think he is only about that type of style of wrestling. Omega, to me, is one of the greatest technical wrestlers I've seen in many, many years. if you've seen, I don't know how much you've watched over the last 5-10 years, a lot of the New Japan stuff. But I mean, some of the matches that he's had, if you've seen any of the ones with Kazuchika Okada, I know they're renewing that rivalry now in AEW at the next big show. But I mean, the matches that he's had, several with him, matches with Kota Ibushi, even someone more familiar to American audiences like Chris Jericho, some of the matches that they did in New Japan, just phenomenal. There was the match that he did. Oh man, I want to say it was either the Wrestle Kingdom show in 2017 or 2018. It's one of those 2 years, but it was the big Wrestle Kingdom show, which is New Japan's biggest show of the year. Okada and Omega, one of the greatest matches I've ever seen in my life. And, I watched it a couple of times. I think it went about 50 minutes, 15 minutes. Just incredible. And I even remember a lot of the current wrestlers at the time praising it, or legends, people like Mick Foley, people like Steve Austin. I think Bryan Danielson at the time was pretty high in it. So to me, again, I can't agree with you in the Young Bucks assessment that you have. I'm a big fan, but at the very least, I think his style, Omega's style, is just above and beyond pretty much almost every wrestler in the modern era.
I'm sorry, my pacemaker stopped for a second. Okay, all right. I will not damn you for anything you just said. Not in the least. It's all in the eye of the beholder. Professional wrestling is. Some people think Glow was the greatest thing that ever came on TV, and I mean that. They go to these events where the Glow girls get together. It's all good. It's just a matter of personal preference. That's all. And I'm not damning any. I will say it again. If you're listening and you're a super big AEW fan, enjoy it. Life is short. If that's your jam, dig it, baby. I mean, seriously, I can't say I have hated everything that AEW has ever done. Sometimes I'll see a clip and I go, "Are you kidding?" I would watch Tony Storm 10 times out of 10. 10 times out of 10. I just think she's so immensely entertaining, and I know it's all a big show, and I should probably damn myself for liking her, but she's so doggone good at what she does and so hilariously funny that I have to stop what I'm doing whenever and just watch her because I just think she's great. So, it's you take the good with the bad. I mean, how much bad comedy have we watched in WWE over the years? And you're right. There's these matchups that don't make sense, and we just watch them like everything is normal. Even in WWE, I can't deny that. I can't explain Rey Mysterio.
Uh-huh.
Rey Mysterio is a very, very small wrestler. Always has been, still is. But he's probably on their all-time top 20 at this point in terms of his success around the globe and everything else. So,
well, Mysterio's a good, if I can just interrupt for 1 second, Mysterio's a good example. So I know, talking about the size thing or the height thing. So do you think Mysterio winning I don't know how many years ago that was now, when they put the world title on Rey Mysterio years ago, but do you think that was a mistake then, giving him that belt because of his size?
Business-wise for WWF, no. It wasn't a mistake. For me, absolutely. I couldn't take that seriously. I couldn't take it seriously. All I know is I saw him watch. He beat Kevin Nash on TV once.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a TV match. He beat him, pinned him. So I don't know what to say other than it is what it is. There is no such thing. All the groups have said that a junior championship or a cruiserweight, nobody's even bothered with them. As far as I know, either organization. They just blend them all together. I think the WWE is taking its smaller competitors and shoving them in the tag team area, I think, for the most part. I mean, shoot. There was a scene of one of the interviewers talking to the Motor City Machine Guns, and it reminded me of the Three Stooges short. Are you sure you guys aren't experienced paper hangers? Right? You remember that one? Because the Stooges were like a foot and a half shorter than the guy you were talking to. Well, they were really short in real life. That's why they were shorter than everybody because they. But the interviewer, I think it was Byron Saxton talking to the Motors, and he was towering over them. Like,
yeah.
Also, he recently interviewed, by the way.
Oh, Zelina Vega.
Zelina Vega, and he's talking to her, and it was literally like, he was 3 feet taller than she was. It was crazy.
Yeah, very short. Yeah.
Now, you can become a very good wrestler at any size. I'm not even damning that. The Young Bucks are good athletes. Selena Vega's a great athlete. Rey Mysterio, fantastic athlete. They're all great in what they do. It's just more realistic when they do it against people their own size. That's just the way I look at it.
Yeah.
It strains credibility, but I have to remember that, I mean, go back to the old days. Since this is an outdated show, they used to team Johnny Rivera, who was very diminutive, in the WWF with Andre the Giant. For a long time, they did. They tagged together and never lost a match. Because it was interesting. They took the shortest guy and the biggest guy, made a tag together, and the fans loved it.
Uh-huh.
But they didn't pretend that, the leading light on the tag team was Johnny Rivera. No, it was just, he could stand on Andre's shoulders and jump on somebody, that type of thing. That was the whole thing in a nutshell. So the point I'm making is, at least in the old days, they would make a nod to the fact that people were really diminutive. Now they just throw them in the big stew, which is, again, this is my age show, and I look at it and I go, yeah, I couldn't deal with the fact that Impact made Tessa Blanchard their overall champion.
Yeah.
I couldn't deal with that. I couldn't deal with it. It to me, it just strains credibility. It's just too out there.
So I think that's okay. So that's a little different. I look at that a little differently, but I mean, yeah, again, about the size thing, I don't know. For me, I feel a little differently. I don't know. Pro wrestling, I think, just because it's a work and it's not like you said about a real fight, us versus the Young Bucks. But to me, it's not supposed to be, unless it's a street fight. It's not really supposed to be positioned as a real fight. It's supposed to be a wrestling match. So to me, I've always looked at it as like the reason why. Let's just use Ric Flair. The reason why Ric Flair, I'm not saying he's a tiny guy, but I mean, he's not towering like a Hogan. So, I mean, the reason why Flair was so great was because he was such a great wrestler. He was a great showman. He was a great technical wrestler, but he had the full package, the total package. So I look at that way, where if you look at it in a real fight, you might think like, well, Hogan could probably, Hogan looks like he would beat the hell out of Flair. But I mean, we never looked at it that way in the 80s. We looked at it as, oh, who would win? Flair, because Flair was way above Hogan as far as the type of worker, the type of wrestler he was. So I kind of equate it to that, where I don't know, for some reason, like the size of the guys, if they're a little shorter or this and that, or they're skinny, it doesn't really bother me.
Yeah,
Just
but
because
it's not that they're a little shorter. It's not possible.
So I feel like it's not supposed to be positioned as a real, quote unquote, real fight. I mean, look, that's what, in a way, that's what maybe UFC is or MMA is, where those guys are going out there fighting. But
But if it's not a real fight, why are we watching it?
well, that's what I'm saying. It's not a fight. It's a wrestling match. It's supposed to be two guys going in there wrestling each other. And that's
But
why,
nobody wrestles anymore. What's the point of
well,
that?
that's a different story if you're talking but I mean to say, like, technically these guys are I mean, hey, look, if we're really going to not suspend belief, I mean, the guys that get into the ring, are they really going to do all the things they do? No, they just roll around the ring and try to beat the hell out of each other, but they're not. They're trying to do wrestling moves
I
because
ask myself that a lot.
but you know what I'm trying to get at? I'm trying to say, like, if you're going to really nitpick and think about, well, in a real
I
fight, Mysterio couldn't hold
well,
Nash down. Well, that
there
turns
you
the whole game out
there
in
you
general.
go. Well, there you go. Because AEW has these undersized guys. I just don't look at it. I think it strains credibility too much. I just don't look. I think that 75% of the AEW roster would never make the WWE. Not even close. 75, maybe 80% of it, maybe 90% of the roster.
In
There
what
may be
in
5
what sense?
people there that the WWE would hire.
No, I
No,
disagree. In what sense?
absolutely.
But you're
Some
talking
of it
about in what sense? Because of their size?
because 65, 70 have the charisma of a plastic spoon. That's why. They just don't have it. I don't care that it's on TNT.
I
I'm
don't know.
sorry. I'm sorry. It's not happening there. Ask any old timer.
But I would disagree and say that WWE has just as many guys with no charisma. I mean, you're going to say that
Oh, I
the
don't agree with that at all.
entire roster of WWE just automatically has charisma
No,
and
no,
AEW doesn't?
that's impossible. But I'll say that the ones that don't, they shuffle them out of there pretty quick. There's some kind of an it factor. If a wrestler in WWE didn't have some sort of an it factor, they wouldn't be hired in the first place. The WWE picks the wheat from the chaff way better. Who had the charisma when AEW started? The guy with no legs? Did he have a astounding amount of charisma? Who's these other guys that just float through? You know, the Colt Cabanas of the world, all these other guys. Is this the cream of the crop we're talking about here?
Well,
No,
Cabana's
seriously,
an
go back
ROH.
to the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, Cabana wasn't really a big star. He was an ROH guy.
So
But
why is he there? I rest my
Cabana's not
case.
in
The
AEW.
idea of WWE is to make big stars out of all of them in one way or another.
Yeah.
There's no card filler in WWE.
I don't know about that. Is Otis? I mean, Otis isn't a big star. He's a mid card. He's a guy that's just there for comedy.
Is he over?
I don't think. I would say no.
Yeah, he's over. He's been there. What is it? 5 years with his act at this point.
But I think if you look at the AEW fan base, I think a lot of their lower guys are over as well. I mean, if you look at, I don't know. What about
it's Evil Uno over?
who?
Evil Uno.
Oh, Evil Uno. Well, no, but I think
What's he
he's at the
what's he
level.
doing there?
I think he's at the same level as the lower mid card WWE guys.
Oh,
Somebody
please.
like an Hogan.
No. Good God, no. See, here's the difference. AEW literally offends me in a lot of ways. All right? So because I think it's just, let's put on a show. Tony Khan wouldn't know a real wrestling match from a Carvel cake.
Hey, now.
I'm sorry. I have to speak. And you know what? I have no reason to suck up to AEW. I just don't think it's good. I don't think it doesn't entertain me. It doesn't have. They have rejected the traditional values of what makes professional wrestling, and it's just, to me, it's just an affront on everything I ever knew about wrestling. If let's put it this way, if I'm 30 years old now, I'm not going for a job at Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I was into every wrestling federation growing up into my adult years. I didn't care if it was Continental, Memphis, all the territories, Calgary, Florida, what was going on in California, Mid-South, Canada. I was into everything. Nothing offended me in my era, okay? As in my formative years, into my adult years, none of it offended me. There was a couple things like Al Tomko, but that's because it was so cheap, everything. But none of it offended me. AEW offends me. It's like they collectively thumb their nose at the traditions that made pro wrestling. And you know what? I think I've been being too nice about it all this time. And again, if there's people out there who are into it, knock yourself out. It's fine. I don't really care. I'm not damning you for liking it either. Enjoy it. Enjoy Kenny Omega or whatnot. I'm never going to do it. I'm not there. And you're never going to change my mind. Unless, you know what? There's a lot of people were saying, hey, Tony, get a booker. Well, there are no bookers anymore. Right? We talked about this before. There's none of the traditional bookers. And he wouldn't hire a traditional booker anyway. So he's going to keep booking his product and letting his guys book his product. Fine.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, look, again, we've talked about it before. I feel like both promotions have a lot of good. Both promotions have a lot of bad.
I agree.
I just feel like there's this sort of, and this wasn't always the case. AEW hasn't been around that long. Like when the first few years of AEW, it seemed like people really wanted to see it succeed and people were really into it. But it just seems like now, and this kind of harkens back to the whole tribalism thing and the thing where people want to prefer one organization over the other. And I just have never been that way. And
no, I'm not that way either.
And I'll be completely honest. For many years, some of the friends that I used to get together with for wrestling pay-per-views over the years, I'm talking going back, even with like WCW, things like that, they always used to kind of call me the WWE guy because I used to they thought I favored WWE over other promotions. Oh, you're always giving McMahon a pass and this angle sucked and this and that. And I would say, no, I'm not. I said, if there's something I really like, I'm going to say I like it. If there's something I don't like, I'm not going to like it. So I've always sort of had that reputation. And now with AEW and how I felt that overall, I feel like their best matches are better than the best WWE matches. They're more athletic. And case in point, the next AEW pay per view, Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada. I'm telling you, I mean, you watch that match, and that's not going to be a comedy match. That's not going to be a match that you're going to be sleeping on. There's almost no chance of that match not being a match of the year contender. I mean, with two athletes like that, I'm sure there's going to be very little comedy. There's going to be very little joking around. It's going to be a straightforward, great wrestling match. And that's what I want to see. And I want to see athleticism. I want to see really good matches. Now, does that mean everything AEW does is like that? Of course not. They do a lot of stuff that I'm just like, this sucks. I've always said I'm a big MJF fan. I think he's a great character. He's got a great gimmick. What they're doing with him right now, I don't like it. They got him in there with what's his name, MVP and Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley. It's supposed to be he's like sort of trying to get in on their group and they're rejecting him in this whole thing. I'm not particularly invested in that. I think it's a sort of a throwaway angle, but whatever. I'm sure there's people that like it. But I'm just saying from an overall perspective, I think that they do really great technical athletic wrestling better than WWE does. Now, you could disagree with that. I'm sure there's a lot of people that disagree. That's fine, but that's just the way I look at it. But again, if WWE does something really, really good on Raw tonight or on SmackDown this week, whatever it is, I'll give it credit. 100%. I'm not going to just put down WWE because they're WWE. Vice versa for AEW or any of the promotions. TNA, well, maybe NWA. No. No. But I mean, any of the promotions, I'll give them their due.
Oh, did you hear the big news about NWA? They actually found someplace to put it on somewhere.
Yeah, but isn't it like, what is it, on the Roku channel or something?
Yeah, the Roku channel.
I mean, what is that? I thought
I'm
that was
like,
a joke when I
let's
first
have
heard
a
it.
parade, folks. I mean, oh gosh, you know what? The last two times I watched them, I saw a cocaine spot
Oh,
and
right.
a punch
Yeah.
a guy in the dick spot,
Yeah.
and I haven't looked at him since. But there you go.
The NWA is one we can probably agree on in the sense that I think we both really loved it when it came. I'm talking about
It was awesome.
the Billy Corgan
Was
NWA, of
it,
course.
and it's the same guy running it. And I don't understand how you could go from that to what they've done in the last couple of years. I just don't understand. I understand the exodus of talent. Everybody's trying to make a living out there. I get it. And the pandemic really hurt them.
Well, here's the
You
thing
know what?
about
If
them,
he would just again, it's like if anybody, there's no. It's almost like, hey, you got some trunks. You're going to be the
Yeah.
semi-main next Friday. It's what it feels like. It's what it looks like. I'm sorry. There's a couple good people that are still there from the old days, and I feel for them, to be honest with you, because it ain't the same. They're going to have to come a long way to get me back in their good graces because I don't see it. I just don't see it happening.
Well, let me say this about them, and I'll be completely honest right now. I have not watched the product in probably a year or two. So
Mhm.
I can't really speak to, I can't honestly say what they're putting on right now is garbage because I haven't watched it in a year or two. But from when I stopped watching it a year or so ago, there wasn't one redeeming thing that they were doing at that point to where you can say, well, they had good comedy. Well, they had good technical wrestling. Well, they had good this, that. None of it was good. I was practically watching it. I think I would like have it on streaming while I was working, just sort of in the background. And I put it on and I was like, this is really terrible. So I think in that sense, yeah, I don't know how Corgan is still going. I don't know, other than the fact that he must have just disposable income. I can't see how he's making any money on that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know what their income sources are, but it was pretty bad.
And
Yeah.
this is why I want to investigate the indies. Hopefully, you'll come to me for an indie
Yeah.
card sometime soon because it's like we have to go to an indie card and see what the flavor is now. See how
And
much these outside influences have gotten into the indie scene, or if they haven't. I want to go to Connecticut to see Rick Del Santo's group. I do because I want to see. I've seen the stuff they've done on TV, and it looks traditional to me. It doesn't look like there's everything that's over the top, and it's in a small venue, so they
okay.
can't go
Yeah.
running around the place.
Yeah.
So I want to see some indie work. I want to see Creative Pro real bad. I really got to see a card.
Ironically, I didn't plan this, but the morning that we're taping this now, just this morning, I got an email, uh, and it said the NWA is coming to your area. I was like, "What is that?" So I opened it up, and apparently they're doing a show out in Long Island in August, and I kind of laughed at that. I was like, "Well, that's interesting," But
Where? Do you remember the venue?
I believe it's going to be in Huntington at the
Oh, is it like
Paramount at Huntington.
the Paramount?
Well, in Huntington, yeah, I believe
Oh,
so. Yeah.
oh,
So there's that. I mean, again, I know that we're not high on it, but that would be something interesting to see for ourselves exactly what they're
but
doing now.
see, this is the NWA in a nutshell. I think they sold out their recent card at the 2300 in Philadelphia. What does it hold? 2100 people, and they're acting like they filled the garden. So I don't know what to say, but good luck, everybody. You're gonna need it.
Yeah, yeah,
Listen, I don't wish ill about anybody. I don't wish ill to AEW fans or you or anyone who loves it. I just say enjoy what you like. Enjoy what you like. I mean, it's like at least we still have wrestling, whereas other forms of entertainment are going by the wayside. There's no roller derby anymore, Joe. I can't see roller derby. There is roller derby. There was female roller derby all over the country. The problem is that I think the pandemic hurt it greatly and it never really made a comeback, I don't think.
yeah,
If it has,
yeah.
forgive me, but I don't see it. I don't even in Long Island, I don't see any ads for it or anything like that.
No, no, I
Um,
haven't either.
but a lot of the things that were around when we were youngsters, but you know what's still around? Carvel is still around. And I don't know if you saw my wonderful photos recently of some snacks we had. And I'll have you know, the Carvalanche, my friend. Dig this. You know, your favorite part of the cake is the crunchies, right?
Yeah.
There's a flavor of Carvalanche, and I ordered it. It was crunchies. What they do is they put some crunchies at the bottom of this big cup, right? And fill a little vanilla ice cream in there. You know, I'm a vanilla guy. Then they
Yeah.
put another layer of it. Then they put another layer of ice cream. So you got 2 layers of crunchies, and then they top the whole thing with a whole mess of crunchies, and then they mix the whole damn thing together. Nirvana,
Wow.
baby, Nirvana.
Wait, what is this called?
It's the crunchy Carvalanche.
Oh, it's actually called.
Crunchies.
Okay.
That's the flavor. The flavor is called just plain, the chocolate
Wow.
crunchies?
That
Crunchies.
sounds good. Yeah, that sounds great.
And I gotta tell you, the thing was like $8.39. We bought it in Long Island, right? But the thing was hefty. I mean, it was we had eaten lunch, and I was like, "I don't know if I could finish this." So I pulled my way through. I don't know how I did it. But, I and, she had something else, I forget. She's a pistachio fan like you are. Did you say you like
Oh
pistachio?
yeah, it's my favorite.
Actually, she was disappointed. Like, I take that back. She didn't have it because they were out of it. The machine wasn't working that made the pistachio or something like that.
Okay. Okay.
But what did she end up having? Another I just think she had a couple flavors in a cup, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But you know what? Really, really good stuff, baby. So have you had any recently? Our fans wanna know.
I know. Sorry to disappoint. I have
Yeah.
not in the immediate, I haven't had any very recently, but hey, look, the warmer weather is here now, and I'm sure my wife and I are going to be venturing out to our local Carvel, especially as I mentioned, I love the wacky buy one get one Wednesdays,
Oh, yeah.
buy one get one Sunday, which we are. I think I've mentioned I'm usually a Sunday guy. I'm not a big. I don't get a lot of cones.
No,
Yeah,
I wear a bearded men don't eat cones.
yeah. I
They
like
don't.
Sundays. I
They
like
don't.
it in the cups. It's easier. You get a spoon. It's easy to eat them that way. You don't have to worry about it melting all over you
Yeah,
and everything.
yeah, yeah.
But no,
But
I'm sure we'll be making a trip sooner than later. And pistachio
oh,
always has my name on it.
I'm working on an interview. I am serious, and I'm hoping to post photos of who I'm interviewing online so that people believe I'm going to interview who I'm about to interview. This is for you, Joe. I'm hoping that the interview comes out. I'm going to investigate it this week because I'm off for my media job for vacation. So I am going to. I'm investigating an interview that'll knock. We'll put it this way: it'll knock the crunchies out of your cake, baby. I'm telling you right now.
Color
So
me intrigued. Yeah.
yeah, so keep an ear and eye peeled. We will go over this as soon as. Actually, I will go to social media first with this if this occurs. All right. I mean,
Okay.
it's going to be posted in photographic, so people will believe what I'm telling them.
Looking forward to that.
People need to see it because it's so out of left field that I think people will need to see. So if you're one of my Facebook followers, I'm Bob Smith, the one that seems to be BB King on Facebook. Tune in because I may soon have a celebrity interview that will just, let's put it this way, it'll put it'll put the cone on your cookie puss. We'll put it that way. Oh man, Carvel just that never ends. But I got to thank you for this though. I haven't had Carvel in a month of Sundays. Like I said, we went out recently and it was spectacular. It wasn't just good because sometimes lately I'll fess up to this and I gotta lose a few pounds. But once in a great while, if I'm at McDonald's, they have ice cream, what they call ice cream there, and it's like $2.39. You get a little cup of vanilla, you can get a little hot fudge on it or something else. Not that great. It's ice cream,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have the consistency. Nothing has the consistency of good. I'll put Dairy Queen makes a quality product too, and I think Carvel. Who else out there that has soft ice cream? I think that's about it. I can't think of anybody else who specializes it.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
And that's one of the reasons why I've always felt Carvel was so underrated, because you wouldn't realize it, but not many of these ice cream businesses have that option. The majority of the options are your regular, harder ice cream. Not many do the soft serve. And I think Carvel not only does it the best, but yeah, they perfected it, and that's why it's always surprising to me. I've always felt they were sort of like underrated when it comes to ice cream out, because it seems like more people are, Baskin Robbins, let's go to Baskin Robbins. But I don't know. To me, Baskin Robbins, yeah, it's got all the flavors, but I don't know. To me, it was always overrated. It's a lot of it's similar to me to the same ice cream you could get in the supermarket.
yeah. I was thinking the same thing when you said it. Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, like whereas Carvel is more of an experience where you want to go out for that soft serve, and you can't really get that in the supermarket. And once it's in the freezer, it hardens up, and that's it. So I've always just surprised that it. Hey, look, my wife likes soft serve so much that when we are going to have ice cream at home from something in the freezer, she will take the carton out, put it in the sink for a half hour, because she wants it to melt so that she can have it, so that it's similar to Carvel. So I'm not exaggerating there.
I
That's
used
true.
to live in Long Beach, Long Island, right? And near the water. And they used to have a Carvel there, but one day they didn't. It closed. Somebody reopened it and put an M where the C was, and now it's called Marvel soft serve ice cream. They were good. There's a lot of good soft serve independent ice cream out there, and I don't want to besmirch anybody.
Yeah.
I'm just a soft serve guy. I think that's a real treat. The
Yeah.
real treat, just to see it on the
Great.
cone with all swirls like that. If it's well made, the guy knows how to. And I know people love them with the bonnets on them, the chocolate dip and all that, and the strawberry dip and stuff like that. It's to me that's summer in America. That's the flavor of summer. Do you
Right.
agree?
I agree. Definitely agree. I would even say I prefer Carvel to like the old Mr. Softy ice cream trucks. And I feel like there's something to be said for them as well, because growing up as a kid, I loved them as well.
Now it's
There's nothing
amazing. It's amazing you mentioned that because in my neighborhood they
yeah.
are perennial. We
Oh yeah.
have not only Mr. Softy, but the copycat Mr. Softies.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Mr. Bluefish or something, or wacky clown ice cream, or all this other stuff.
It's like
But
an offshoot of the song. It's not the exact song.
right, they play a
It's
similar
similar.
or something else. They play
Yeah.
it, and for you people out of the New York area, they play a song, dee 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 dee, and as the truck rolls around, and so all the kids can run out of their house and hag their parents for, "I want a $7 ice cream cone, mom."
But
It could right.
some of it was real. I mean, let me see. Did you have one go-to for Mr. Softy when you were a kid? Everybody has their favorites.
Just the trucks.
No, I'm saying, what ice cream did you get on the truck? Did you have one favorite, or did you have a
You
variety?
know me, I'm Bob Boring. I have vanilla.
Even on the Mr. Softy trucks. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I always loved? The packaged toasted almond bars. So, those little ice cream bars where it's vanilla ice cream, but the outer coating is all toasted almond.
Dude, you and I one day have to go upstate. I'm serious. We have to go upstate, and I have to introduce you to the Stewart's Bread and Butter Company, which I work for. One of my first jobs as an adult, and I managed one of these stores. And the ice cream and the ice cream novelties, once again, will blow you away. The make your own sundae is just it's a blessing on earth. Where they'll put 2 scoops of your favorite flavor, and they have so many flavors, like 50 some flavors,
Right.
and they will put it in your little cup, and then they will hand you a giant tray full of every topping you can think of,
Oh,
and you can
nice.
put any one of them on or all of them as many times as you want, and if you want hot fudge, then you have to ask for that because it's hot, they do that for you, but I'm telling you, Stewart's is ice cream nirvana in upstate New York, and if you've never tasted just one spoonful of any flavor out of the dipped,
Yeah.
they will dip it for you. They have the big freezers down low and they reach into it and they dip the ice cream out. You'll plots. I'm telling you, this stuff is just, it is the highest quality ice cream I've ever eaten. And it's only because I believe it's so doggone fresh. It's made right there somewhere. There's not a farm Stewart's they're from Saratoga Springs up there.
Mhm.
So the entire Capital District has Stewart stores with gas stations. It looks like it looks like a 7-Eleven, but
Right.
you if you've never tried it, you gotta try it.
I've never tried the ice cream, but my sister and my brother-in-law lived upstate for several years, and whenever we would drive to see them, we would pass a Stewart's shop, but I don't know if we ever stopped. We might have stopped once to just get coffee or something like that, but
Mhm.
definitely not. I don't believe I've ever tried their ice cream. So yeah, I would definitely look forward to that.
They have killer coffee too.
Yeah, yeah,
Back when I was running it, we a huge morning business of coffee and hard rolls and, gas and cigarettes.
right.
That's what people love here in the old USA. Well, anyway, Joe, always a pleasure. I'm a little shocked at your Kenny Omega proclivities, but you know what? Listen, enjoy. Enjoy every match. Enjoy Will Ospreay. Enjoy the Young Bucks. Enjoy them all. I mean this. There's never any rancor involved. It's simply an artistic standpoint, my friend. And it's like, again, it's just me. I'd rather watch the Fashan brothers. I'd
And
rather watch big menacing masculine men. To be honest with you, I'm not that fond of today's prancing wrestling stars. I'm just not.
And please don't get me wrong too. I mean, I know I've said this a million times. That's why I'm on this show in the first place. But I am not by any means maligning any of them as well. I love old school, as you know. I mean, I love those guys. I love everything. But I mean, I would just, hey, look, you like you said, you like what you like, and I think that's what makes I think that makes it interesting too. I mean, to have differences of opinions and be able to say like, no, I like this guy stinks, this guy's great. I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
how it would be boring if everybody liked the same things, right?
everything can't be the same. Imagine if there was only vanilla ice cream. Imagine if there's only cheese pizza, right?
Right.
They wouldn't be as popular as they are. You make a
Exactly.
very good point. It all comes back to Carvel, folks. It all it all comes back to Carvel. That
Everything
should be we're gonna
always
work on them as a sponsor. I swear to God we are. Anyway, this is Joe Puccio, the proprietor, owner, writer, editor. He does the dishes at generationxwire.com. The entertainment site with a difference, and what a difference, because it's got information you won't find anywhere else. Joe, I'm glad things are going so well for your site, and I know you put a lot of hard work into it, and you have some, and it's more than just you that writes there. You have writers, you have a staff, don't you?
I do have a few writers, yeah. We try to. It wasn't always that way. I've tried to expand it over the last year or so, simply just because again, I mean, there are many areas of interest of some of the people on the writing staff that maybe I don't have. So it's great to get a more of a eclectic mix of things. So that's really helped us a lot too. And strictly just for content, I'm only one person, so it's a little hard to keep up with everything else and also new content for the website. So that's why we did that. But yeah, there's a lot of new things coming up wrestling wise. Uh, I don't think I have anything as of right now fully set. wrestling wise, but I am working on a few things. So hopefully in the next month or so, these things will come to fruition. I'll have some new wrestling oriented guests. This is, after all, the wrestling podcast. So, that would make sense, but stay tuned for that.
Okay. Attention, Gen Xers. If you'd like to explore the era that appeals to you, look no further than GenerationXWire.com. The generation who grew up with elite in entertainment, music, movies, TV, books, pro wrestling, and more finally has a one-stop destination for all their Gen X needs. From Aerosmith to Batman to the Killer Bees to the Twilight Zone, there's something for everybody at GenerationXWire.com. You won't find a more eclectic mix of pop culture content than at the leading website that specializes in the greatest generation, GenerationXWire.com. Check it out today. Well, there you go. Another one in the books. I really enjoyed putting this one together, and I wish everybody a great holiday out there, regardless of what's going on in your lives. I just hope everything is wonderful for each and every one of our listeners out there. I just want to make this known once again that on the 11th of July, we're taking 1 week off. We will not have a show on Friday the 11th. We'll be right back on Friday the 18th with the wonderful Dave Dynasty. I know I originally announced that for July 4th. We had to postpone it because I had to get this show out immediately because of a scheduling conflict. So we're going to have to push that one back a couple of weeks. But that's going to be our very next show with the wonderful Dave Dynasty. You won't want to miss that one. Guy knows everything there is to know about everything. Write to us, outdatedwrestling@gmail.com, our website, outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com. Hear all of our shows at the press of a button. We're also at WrestleCopia.com, all of our latest episodes. Also on our website, you can find out about the Outdated Wrestling Hour fan club. Check all the information out right there and in there. Find me on Facebook. I'm the only Bob Smith you'll find singing with BB King, I'll tell you that. And you can also find me on X, Threads, Instagram, and Blue Sky. We're going to put a wrap on this because it was a long show this time. We'll see you again on the 18th with Dave Dynasty. Thank you all for your support. Actually, thank you all for everything. It's been a wonderful trip. And being able to meet Brian Solomon in person for the first time was a wonderful experience. And I hope we can do it many, many times in the future. Maybe collaborate on some new concepts for y'all. Who knows? That's the beauty part of these wrestling podcasts, man. You never know what we're going to boil up for you. Speaking of boiling, it's July 4th. Hot out there. Take care of yourselves. Ringo Starr says, peace and love, brothers and sisters. Peace and love.